All right, what's up, fellow nerds? Part 2 of my CGC unboxing. Again, this is from my first submission. I have a video for the first box. This is the second box. This one says 17 books in it. The other one had 25. That's one of the lessons I learned. You more or less get charged the same, whether you're going to ship just a couple of books back or you're going to get shipped 25 books back. So if you're really trying to do CGC on a budget or to maximize profits or returns so that you can turn those books back into other books in your collection, you want to try to send them off in multiples of 25 if you can. They have to be also from the same tier. So again, the box is sort of set up to hold 25. If you have 17, they're going to pack it like this. This, again, being a submission that went in June last year and being received February of this year, so 7.5 total months for economy, non-expedited, so modern, that is. So let's see what books I subbed here. Most of these are books that I've had since I was a little kid or bought off the spinner rack myself, and some of them are just books I love so much that I bought doubles when I saw them. This is an example of that. So this is New Teen Titans number 23. Obviously, Marv Wolfman, George Perez. This is first appearance of Blackfire in a 9.2. It's a newsstand edition. Here's a book that's kind of interesting. I subbed it only because there's only 7 of them in the census. So this is Mighty Avengers number 2. It's a variant that apparently is pretty uncommon, obviously with Captain Marvel here. So thought it might be interesting just to see what somebody would pay for that, even though it's not a 9.8, just because there are so few in the census. Here's a book I think everyone should have in their collection, Iron Man number 118. This is obviously the first appearance of Rhodey, Jim Rhodes, who later becomes Iron Man and then War Machine. This is a double that I had, and it's in a 7.0. Pretty, I think, fair grade on this. It has some spine ticks. It's got color-breaking creases here along the top. Little color-breaking crease there and there as well. That said, it's pretty nice looking copy, nice and flat, doesn't have major flaws, and it was a double for me. And with Armor Wars coming up, I thought it could be a book that, again, my interest in subbing these is mostly to sell or trade them, to turn them into books that I don't have in my collection. So with Armor Wars coming up, it could be a book that I can turn into something that, you know, I really need in my collection because it was a double for me. Speaking of, this was also a double for me. This beautiful Todd McFarlane cover that was printed so many times and in so many different variants, and has been homaged so many times. And I was happy to get a copy of this gold edition for what I thought was a very fair price. I think I paid around $10 for it. And it was a really clean copy, and I went ahead and cleaned and pressed it. Really, in this case, it was just a quick wipe down and a press, but happy that that's coming back in a 9.8. Another copy of that Morbius from 1992. This one again in a 9.8, the third part of the Rise of the Midnight Suns story arc, with the Morbius movie coming out. And, you know, me finding these in dollar bins for the last decade seemed like a good book to send off for slabbing. Another part of that story arc. This is the Spirits of Vengeance, Ghost Rider and Blaze. So this is part 2 of the Rise of the Midnight Suns. It is another number 1. And this one, again, all these came poly-bagged with a little poster. This one came back as a 9.8 from the dollar bin. Happy with that. Here's a book I was a little surprised at the low grade on. This is Micronauts number 8, first appearance of Captain Universe. I got this in a lot of Micronauts that, frankly, I paid about $1 a book for. So I guess not really fair to say I only paid $1 for this, since, you know, I also had to take all the other issues, which are in a lot less demand. But to my eye, I just don't see how this is an 8.0. I looked at the grader's notes, and it's still not clear to me how this is an 8.0. So that might be one that I'm going to consider cracking and resubmitting. It really doesn't have any visible flaws, so it's really not clear to me why that would be an 8.0. But we'll see. Like I said, I'll review the grader notes. Maybe I missed something. It is my first submission to CGC. Here's one of the few books out of all these that I have no intention of selling. This is Legends number 3, the first appearance of the new Suicide Squad. This is a double cover, and I was fortunate enough to have it come back as a 9.8. So I bought this knowing it was a double cover. I didn't pay a huge premium on it. I paid a little premium. Cleaned and pressed it, and when I sent it off, I thought, this is a really nice book. If I do get a 9.8, that's probably going in my PC, because it doesn't really matter how much money someone's willing to pay me for that. How would you replace it in your collection? When would you see another first appearance of the Suicide Squad in a double cover 9.8? So feel free to make me a crazy offer if you want, but that's what it will take to get it out of my hands. So Captain America 323. This is the first appearance of the John Walker as the Super Patriot, and it's also the first appearance of Battlestar. So obviously there was a lot of hype around those books, those characters, I should say, during the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show. There's also a lot of interest right now in these Marvel frame books. There's folks trying to put together collections of these. This is a double copy that I had that was in, you know, reasonably good shape. I did not obviously expect a 9.8 on this, so I'm happy with this grade. Again, I'll review the grader's notes. I don't remember what I estimated. I thought actually this was going to come back a little bit higher, but I knew it wasn't really a 9.8 candidate. It was a double that I had that I picked up somewhere along the way for, you know, very inexpensively. Tales of the New Teen Titans, or Tales of the Teen Titans, I guess the title is called at this point. Number 44, first appearance of Dick Grayson as Nightwing. First also appearance of Jericho, and there's an origin of Deathstroke. Again, genius Marv Wolfman story, George Perez, Dick Giordano art. This is another book that every time I would see it in the dollar bins, I would just grab it. And so I had multiple extra copies of this book and decided to sub all of them. This is a nice, clean 9.2 direct edition. There's another copy of the same book, same grade, 9.2 direct edition. Here's that same book in a 9.4 newsstand. So this might be one of the copies that I bought off a spinner rack as opposed to out of a dollar bin. I've got a couple copies of this Star Slayer number 10. This is a book that I grabbed out of that comic shop going out of business sale. So again, I paid somewhere in the order of a dime or 20 cents for this like 20 years ago. Been carrying it around since then. I'm a fan of you know, these 80s indie comics, because that was a big part of my collecting when I was 12 years old, which is all of our, you know, our own golden age. And this one happens to be the first appearance of Grimjack. So I had a few extra copies of this from having bought that comic shop out, and I submitted a few of them. There's a 9.4, and I have another 9.4 of that same book. So we'll see what happens with Grimjack, and maybe those will be books that'll be easy for me to sell. This one I was really pleased with the grade on. This is Truth, Red, White, and Black, number 1. This is the first appearance of Isaiah Bradley, again, who we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This one was another dollar bin book, and it had some flaws. This is a cardstock cover, so it's very difficult to press or fix flaws in this book. So I was really happy. I was actually expecting maybe like a 9.2 or 9.4, so I was really happy with this coming back as a 9.6. We'll see where the MCU goes with Isaiah Bradley and where the interest from collectors goes. But regardless, I was happy with that grade. Here's a copy of, again, I had multiple copies of this, another book that I've just been over the years buying whenever I see it at a reasonable price or below the market price at the time. Omega Men number 3, first appearance of Lobo, who I think has to be introduced at some point. It's just way too cool of a character not to, way too much of a fan base from those kids growing up in the 80s and 90s. So a book that made sense to slab and try to turn into, books in my collection that I don't have doubles or triples of. And last book in this submission is this Amazing Spider-Man 101 second print. So this is a pretty interesting book. This is the second print from, I guess, about 20 years after the first printing. This is 1992, in that era when Marvel was doing second prints in these sort of gold and silver inks. And this is just a really neat book. I did not pay a lot of money for it. And I think with the Morbius movie coming up that, there could be a lot of interest in this character. And I did have another copy of this book, so it felt again like something that would be smart to sub. It does have some really minute spine tick right there, which is I think what kept it from being a 9.8. So I think that's a reasonable 9.6, and again something that I'll either sell or trade into, something that's more core to my collection, a book that I don't have already, copies of. So that's the whole reason that I'm subbing mostly to CGC, is just to help sell books or trade them away to grow the collection and just keep the hustle going. So anyway, thanks for your interest. If you're interested in any of those books, again, most of them will be for sale or trade. Either contact me through IG or look for me on Shortbox. And thanks, and maybe we'll do another one of these in 6 months when CGC sends me some more books. Take care.